Good morning. I'd like to call the Solid Waste Authority Board regular meeting of June 14th, 2023 to order at this time. It's 9:30 a.m. My name is Maria Sachs. I'm County Commissioner. If we could have the roll call at this time.
Vice Mayor Sachs.
Here.
Vice Mayor Sachs. Commissioner Marino.
Here.
Commissioner Baxter.
Here.
Mayor Weiss.
Here.
Commissioner Barnett.
Here.
Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Commissioner Bernard.
Here.
We have a quorum.
At this time, we would stand to have an invocation by Mr. Pelowitz and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear God, we are thankful for this day that you have given us, for its blessings, its opportunities, its challenges. May we appreciate and use each day that comes to us. We pray for strength and guidance for each day as it comes, for each day's duties, for each day's problems. May we be challenged to give you our best always, and may we be assured of your presence with us. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda. Are there any additions or deletions, Mr. Pelowitz?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have, I would like to reorder the agenda to move item 9G1, the prepayment of debt, to immediately follow item 6, matters by the public, to precede the budget item, which is dependent upon the board's action on this item.
Very good. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the minutes of April 12th, 2023. Do I have a motion to approve? And a second? Very good. All those opposed? Anybody opposed? Everybody for it? It passes 7-0. Looking at the minutes for the Citizens Advisory Committee of June 7th, 2023, if we could receive and file, the clerk this time. And the same thing with the Small Business Advisory Committee of April 4th, 2023. Do we need to have a motions to approve? Very good. Thank you. Got a second? All those for it? Anybody opposed? See that it passes 7-0. The same thing with the Small Business Advisory Committee of April 4th, 2023. Do we have a motion to receive and file? And a second? Very good. All those for it? Anybody opposed? See that it passes 7-0. Going on to the consent agenda. Does anybody here want to pull any item from the consent agenda at this time? Seeing none? If I could have a vote, if I could have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Second? Is anybody opposed? Everybody for? See that it passes 7-0. Moving on to matters by the public, number 6. Is there anybody, do we have any cards?
No, ma'am.
No, very good. Okay. We're going to, I'm going to thank you, everybody, for that, and we're going to move on to the agenda as reordered. In item 9G1.
Yes,
Mr.
so.
Pelowitz, please.
Yes, as I stated, I requested to reorder the agenda because item 9G1 is for a recommendation to prepay $15 million maturity of our 2021 bonds. This payment would otherwise be due on October 1, 2024, and by prepaying it with reserve funds now, it eliminates our need to fund it in the budget. So what I'm recommending is that the board authorize the use of general reserve funds to facilitate the prepayment of debt and to adopt Resolution 2023-02 authorizing the prepayment of a portion of the October 1, 2024 mandatory sinking fund payment of the authority refunding revenue bonds series 2021. So just some backup. Last year we prepaid about $23 million. This year we're prepaying about $15 million. We've done this a number of times in the past years in order to try to bring the rates down and to mitigate any significant rate increases. So that's really the benefit of doing this. And while we have the reserve funds, it makes, I believe, good policy. So.
Is there any questions or comments by members of the board? See none. We're going to take a vote on the recommendation to authorize the use.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to
Very good.
move this item forward.
Very good. We have a second. Is there anybody in opposition? All right, see that it passes 7-0 unanimously.
Thank you, and I'd like the opportunity to read the caption of the resolution into the record, please.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Pelowitz.
Resolution number 2023-02, a resolution of the Solid Waste Authority of Palm Beach County authorizing the prepayment of a portion of the October 1, 2024 mandatory sinking fund payment of the authority's refunding revenue bond series 2021, authorizing the proper officers of the authority to do all acts necessary and proper for carrying out the transaction contemplated by this resolution, providing for the repeal of prior inconsistent resolutions or proceedings, and providing for an effective date.
Excellent. That's for the record. And we're going to move forward now on the proposed budget. We're going to open the public hearing for the fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget. You'll find that on 7.1. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak? Do we have any comment cards at all?
We do not.
We do not. Okay. Staff, would you like to present your comments at this time, your presentation, Mr. Dubars?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
We are pleased to present the fiscal year 2023-2024 proposed budget for your considerations. And at this time, we're going to turn this over to Ms. Christina Richards. She's our budget manager here for the presentation.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Dumars. Ms. Richards, go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Dumars. Good morning, everyone. For those of you I haven't met yet, I am the budget manager here for the Solid Waste Authority, going on 7 years now. Wow. And I'm very pleased to present this year's budget. As Mr. Pelowitz just mentioned, there was a lot of planning that went into this budget to try and reduce rates below inflation. A lot of our contracts and everything are driven by adjustment factors based on the consumer price index, and that has been going up, so our expenses have in turn also been going up. I've prepared a brief presentation today of our fiscal year 24 proposed budget for this year's trim notice. But to start, I'm going to briefly recap the fiscal year 23 adopted budget, just for a reminder of, like Mr. Pelowitz mentioned, we paid off $23 million last year, which reduced rates last year as well. So the fiscal year 23 adopted budget included residential disposal rates up an average of 3.4% for single-family, multifamily, and mobile homes, as shown on the screen. Commercial disposal rates were also up proportionately. For commercial low is like parking structures. Commercial medium would be like a retail facility, and then commercial high would be like your restaurants. Debt service, as Mr. Pelowitz mentioned, was down $23 million last year because we prepaid a portion of our 2021 series bonds to pass on those savings to the taxpayers that year. The total capital improvement budget was adopted at $48.2 million. It was actually increased between June and August and funded by general reserves. We've used $13.85 million in general reserves to fund our capital projects. Because of those savings, we wanted to get a head start on projects that we had pushed out to later years. And that was for items like our landfill expansion, our landfill closure, and then also the required trommel replacement at our Palm Beach Renewable Energy Facility number 1. Mandatory collection rate were updated pursuant to their contracts. Service areas 1 through 4 and 6 are under a 7-year contract, and then service area 5 is under a cooperative agreement with South Bay. Last year, we also had to apply $417,000 in collection reserves due to increasing fuel prices that year to mitigate the costs that we have to pay our franchise haulers. So, including the $15 million debt service savings from the proposed bond prepayment that Mr. Pelowitz just presented under item 9G1, this includes these savings. Changes proposed for fiscal year 24 include residential rates are up an average of 3.8%. And that's including single-family rates up $6 a year to $190 per year, multifamily up $4 a year to $104 a year, and mobile homes are up $7 a year, and that's at $181 per year. Governmental assessment rates are also up $7 a ton to 149 a ton, and I have a slide coming up with all of these, a summary slide with all of these rates we're proposing today for the trim notice. Commercial disposal rates are also up proportionately for low, medium, and high generator properties, and that equates to, for commercial low, up $5 per 1,000 square feet, medium up $13 per 1,000 square feet, and commercial high up $75 per 1,000 square feet. Mandatory collection rates, again, were updated pursuant to their contracts. Service areas 1 through 4 and 6, proposed rates are flat to fiscal year '23, excluding service areas 3 and 4, curbside rates, and that's due to FCC's extraordinary rate increase that was approved by the board last October 25th. The rates were updated using the last biannual adjustment that was approved. These rates are adjusted twice a year for fuel. So we also applied the fuel that was available at the time for April of 2023, which was up about 37.4% from the contract base. As mentioned, service areas 3 and 4, curbside rates are up $1 and $2 a year respectively, and again, that's due to the extraordinary rate increase that the board approved in October. Service Area 5 rates were updated under their piggyback contract with South Bay. That contract caps their annual refuse rate index, which is based on waste collection CPI at 5%. So we included $32,000 in collection reserves just to keep all service areas comparable, since the others were flat, other than service areas 3 and 4 curbside. Total revenues are up $11.9 million, and that includes disposal revenues up $11.5 million. Assessments are up, disposal revenues include assessments up $9 million, interest up $7.2 million, pelletizer contract revenue up $1.1 million, and tipping fee revenues are up a total of $876,000. Staff's also proposing a $5 per ton increase to the building debris tipping fee rate for fiscal year '24. Our tonnage has been trending up year to date. It's about 10.2% over last year. So that's included in those increased tipping fee revenues. Okay, other changes though include decreases. We're projecting a $6.7 million total decrease for our electric and recycling revenues. And electric, that's due to the power purchase rates from FPL are decreasing, and then for recycling, the market rates for materials like fiber and plastics are down. And staff is not currently proposing the use of general reserves. Fiscal year '23 included $13,850,000, but again, that was to fund our capital. Including reserves does reduce our debt service coverage ratio, which Moody's looks at for our annual credit rating. Okay, so fiscal year '24 proposed expenses, the changes include disposal operating expenses are up $12 million or 5.9%, and that includes plant operator expenses up $2.4 million, and those are adjusted each year pursuant to their contract CPI adjustments, and SWA operating's up $9.6 million, and that includes total personal expenses were originally projected in this budget to increase 9.7%. I'm sure you guys are aware. That was due to the Florida retirement system and House Bill 239. The initial projections were quite significant for the employer contribution to the Florida retirement system. That was later substituted by Senate Bill 7024, and the governor just signed it last week, so those rates were much lower. So we're actually gonna be able to reduce that. It'll be like about a $1 million or $1.1 million increase instead of 2.3. Health insurance also is up $1.3 million, and overtime and FICA are up a combined $268,000. Staff also applied a 5.5% COLA, and that was due to last year the board's recommendation to set COLA at 5.39. Actual COLA was about 8.26%. Using our normal methodology, in years past, it's been about 1% to 2%, never above that. So the board recommended that so that we would be in line with the state of Florida that year. So we felt 5.5 was a conservative, unless the board has any recommendations. Okay. Other contractual expenses are up $2.8 million, and that's due to increased tonnage and processing costs. Repair and maintenance costs are up $1.5 million for needed repairs in fiscal year '24. Property insurance premiums are up $518,000. And we left the blighted grant funded for a 9th year at $750,000. Staff is also proposing an increase to its FTEs for an equipment operator trainee. By adding this, we actually reduced our vacancy funding. We have roughly about 30 vacancies. Some of them are actively being recruited for, but we reduced it from 100% funding in fiscal year '24 to 50%. So essentially, they're funded for only 6 months of the year, and that will be covered by turnover. So we're requesting that new position, but we also reduced the personnel budget and vacancy funding by $1.33 million. Debt service includes the $15 million in savings from the bond prepayment that Mr. Pelowitz presented under 9G1 and the board just voted on, which reduced debt service this year from $63 million to $28 million. It's down about, 63 million to 48 million for fiscal year '24, and our debt service coverage ratio is 163% or 1.63. Our required minimum is 1.1. However, a higher debt service coverage looks better to Moody's, and also they also look at our cash on hand. The total capital budget is 28 million, and that's down 20 million from last year. As I mentioned, we increased between June and August by 13.6 million to fund projects that were needed, like the landfill closure and expansion projects. And all of the projects are listed on pages 15 through 17 of item 7.1 for your review and reference, or if you have any questions. And as mentioned, the staff is not proposing the use of general reserves for disposal. And lastly, for this slide, proposed mandatory collection expenses are up 187,000, and that's due to the contractual adjustments, and we included that 32,000 to keep service area 5 rates comparable. This chart shows the average consumer price, or this shows the consumer price index for the last 6 months from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. May actually just was released yesterday, and this is for wage earners in the South region, and compared year over year to the indices from the same months of 2021 and 2022. The variance is trending down, so staff is currently only proposing a 5.5% COLA for fiscal year '24. This chart shows the average consumer price index, again, for 12-month periods. The top chart shows a 7.7% increase, and the bottom a 7.2% increase for the time period shown. And this shows the history of our disposal assessment rates. The top orange line is the average CPI each year. The line under is if our rates followed inflation, and the blue line at the bottom are our actual rates. The top chart of $203 is what our budget actually came in at this year, but through planning and reducing budgets before coming before you today, including the $15 million that we plan to reduce for debt service, which took the single-family rate down about $12. We're at $190 today, as shown in the bottom chart with that bond prepayment that you all just voted on. And here's the history of our general reserve balance. As I mentioned, Moody's reviews our general reserve balance and our cash on hand, and that goes into our annual credit review with them. And it shows how we've used reserves over the years to keep rates as steady as possible and well below inflation. This graph shows the contractual fuel index for the Oil Price Information Service, or OPIS, that's used for service areas 1 through 4 and 6 to adjust 10% of the rates as contracted biannually. The fuel index, as you can see, like I mentioned, we use April 2023's fuel index, which was available at the time of this budget, released on May 1st. Each month, it's released on the 1st of the month for the prior month. As you can see, May is down, so depending on what rates do, we're going to continue to track them. We may be able to present lower assessments in August, just depending on what fuel rates do. And here's a summary of all the assessment rates and tipping fees we're proposing today for the fiscal year 2023-2024 trim notice. As you know, assessments can't be increased between now and August. We can only decrease them, so this is the highest they would go. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Pelowitz with our staff recommendations, and we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to just kind of go back a little bit because we went a little fast on some of these. So I want to go back to first to take a look at the, well, let's just look at this first. So what we're proposing here today on the collection side is basically an effort to keep the collection rates flat to last year. last year, fuel prices were spiking and going higher, and so what we put in the budget last year, actually, the fuel prices never got to the level that we budgeted last year. So what we're proposing to do here is push those savings forward into this year to maintain stable rates. The only increases you see reflected here right now are in service areas 3 and 4 down south. It's $1 a year in service area 3 and $1 a year in service area 4 for the minimum wage increase. The voters approved a minimum wage hike up to $15 an hour by $1 a year increments through 2026. And that was a change in law, and FCC Environmental, the hauler for South County, came forward and requested that rate increase, and the board approved it last October. So it amounts to, right now, about 11 cents a month per home. And just with rounding, service area 3 is $1 and service area 4 is $2. We may be able to get some relief in these rates by looking at where fuel prices go between now and August. So there is a potential for them to come down a little bit. So that's where we are on that. As far as service area 3 and 4 go, this number is going to increase by about 10 cents a month each year through the end of the contract, which is 3 more years. So you're looking at potentially, $4 a year max or something like that on this, maybe $5 a year on this. So that's where we are on that. It's the only service area that had an extraordinary rate increase, and that was the result of the fact that FCC uses a subcontract labor company to provide their labor, and they had to bring their wages up to the minimum wage and pass that through to FCC. So that's the history on that, just for the benefit of the commissioners who were not on the board at the time. Can you go back to the one with our rates and the CPI? I just want to hit on that real quick. So we went through this pretty quickly. I just want to note that the 203 in the top graph, the $203 is where our budget would be if it was not for the prepayment of the debt. We would be at $203. The bottom graph shows us at $190. If you look at the chart on the bottom graph, you see that the authority has had very, very stable rates for a long time. At issue, though, is on the last couple of years, we have applied reserves to buy down rates consistently. But at some point, that's not going to be possible on a continuing basis. And so our philosophy here has been to provide for modest increases in that rate so that we can ultimately approach rates that reflect what the system actually costs. We have some, on the outside, a couple years out, we have some significant capital improvements that are going to need to be made. The most significant in the nearer term is the cell 25 and 26 landfill expansion. So that's going to be constructing 2 landfill cells. It's approximately 20 acres of landfill space. That includes the grading, the design, the grading, the liner installation, all of the work associated with that. It could be $25 to $30 million is a reasonable estimate. So when we come back in August, depending on what the reserves look like, it's my intent to probably increase the capital budget somewhat, maybe for half of that, so that we can pre-fund that project now when we have the capacity to do it, rather than having future rates impacted by the need to fund a $25 million project in 1 year. So, so that's what we'll look at is coming in August, increasing the capital budget and paying for it with reserves. So that's kind of the plan. It's kind of the explanation for how we got here, but you'll see over the last 3 years, we have that gradual 3+% slope in the rates. My opinion and is that I think this system provides incredible value to the county. I mean, our rates are low compared to others when you consider that this is one of the best solid waste management systems in the world. We have the top system, the newest waste energy plant, and we've invested in it. And it's all made possible because everybody's in. When you have a county of 1.5 million people, 700,000 homes, and everyone is in the system and everyone is contributing to it, you can keep those rates low, and that's why the system is successful. The second issue I want to bring up, obviously, in terms of future investment is Renewable Energy Facility number 1. That contract expires in 2029. There is a 5-year extension available. But there is the real potential for the need to replace that facility or come up with an alternative by 2029 or by 2034. Constructing a new waste energy facility to replace that one is probably a $1.2 to $1.5 billion project. We built REF 2 for $700 million plus, and we were able to bring it online on time with no rate increase. I don't know that we'd be able to do that with this, but that's in the future. That's the planning, and that's why I think it's important that we try to maintain the reserves that we have, because there may be a need to cash fund a portion of that, and we would obviously like to be in a position to do that. And as opposed to, we've heard a lot about debt service coverage. Just for those who are new, it's a trust indenture bond covenant that our coverage be a minimum of 110. So if you take our revenues, subtract our operating expenses, take that number and divide it by debt service, it needs to be at least 110. But 110 doesn't get us a AA plus bond rating with S&P or a AA2 rating with Moody's. So we've consistently tried to stay above 130. And the better we do with that, then the better our interactions and better our bond ratings are. And so that's important to us. With that, we are available to answer any questions you have. Just to reiterate, the rates, if you approve these rates, they will go on the trim notice. You will see the budget again in August. The rates can come down, they can't go up.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ms. Richards. Thank you so much, Mr. Pelowitz. I know are there any other comments by the public before we move to comments by the board? Very good. We're going to move to comments by the board, and we're going to start with you, Mayor Weiss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say how pleased I am with how you manage us financially, how you manage this operation. It's really refreshing to see how well it's done, and it's a testament to being really smart and managing this operation. I think the citizens of Palm Beach County are very well served by how well this system is operated. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to move this item forward.
Very good. Thank you. We have a couple more comments, Mayor. Would you hold on to your motion until we have all of the comments by the members of the board? We can second. Okay, go ahead. All right, any other comments? I know we have some to my left. There was a light on. Was there a light before you, Commissioner Baxter? Was there a light on over to the left? Very good. All right, go right ahead, Commissioner Baxter.
I was just going to ditto what the mayor said, so thank you for everything and how well this was all put together and presented, and just for doing an amazing job. And since it was already seconded, I don't have to do it again. So thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Commissioner Marino.
Mr. Pelowitz, in the budget, I know we're going to talk about High Point later, but in the budget, what do we have set aside as the lease payment? And do we project that in the budget past December?
Yeah, the lease revenue is in the budget. It's probably going to be 85,000.
It's 89,500, assuming 5% increase.
89,500 is in the budget.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I would, if there are no other comments by members of the board, the motion by Mayor Weiss is to approve the proposed budget, approve the assessment and tip fee rates for the required notice, and continue the public hearing until August 23rd, 2023. That motion by Mayor Weiss, seconded by Commissioner Marino, and all in favor. Is there anybody opposed? Fine, that motion passes unanimously, 7-0. Very good. All right, we're on to old business. Are there any items in old business we wish to look at? None. Very good. Let's go on to new business. Mr. Pelowitz, do you have any new business other than what we've already been through? I take it that's a no. We're going to move on. We have legal counsel with us. And do you have any new business that first, if you could identify yourself for the record, because I know that
This is
Name.
Howard Falcon, Chief Assistant County Attorney, and I do not have any new business.
Very good. Mr. Carroll, who's Chief Operations, Field Services, and Utilities.
Nothing today, thank you.
Very good, Mr. Carroll. Customer Information Services, Mr. Gonzalez.
Nothing today.
Very good. Thank you for your services. And Engineering and Construction Services, Mr. Kari, Chief.
Yes, good morning, Madam Chair and members of the
Morning.
board. Item 91 is about lithium-ion batteries. When those batteries are improperly disposed, they pose a fire hazard. So it's very important for us to educate the public on proper disposal and kind of lead them into where they can take these batteries for recycling and proper disposal. So we've launched an education campaign spearheaded by Ms. Jess Winter. She's our Recycling Education Marketing Manager, and she has a presentation for us.
Very good. Go right ahead.
Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. So I'll be presenting to you this morning on our recently launched public education campaign on lithium-ion batteries and why it's important for our 1.5 million residents and more than 9 million visitors per year to keep those out of the waste stream. So we'll briefly go over what the problem is with these batteries, what the industry response to the problem has been thus far, the public education campaign itself, and our recent partnership with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. So the bottom line is that these batteries are a fire hazard. What happens is that they're very incendiary in nature. So when they're exposed to high temperatures or when they're damaged and become exposed to moisture, they have what's called an exothermic reaction. It's a chemical reaction that produces a lot of heat and spark. And then that can lead to something in the battery called thermal runaway, which is essentially a continuous heating process, and it leads to explosion and fires. So inevitably, when these batteries do enter the waste stream, they will become damaged, they'll become punctured, and they will be exposed to moisture. They'll end up, if they're just in the back of a garbage truck, simply coming into contact with the sides of the metal of the truck could cause them to go into these reactions that I just explained. And then, of course, they're surrounded by a bunch of waste, which serves as fuel if they do spark a fire. And we've seen numerous fires in solid waste facilities around the country. So it's a very big problem. And on the next slide here, I just have a demonstration, a short 1-minute video to show you what happens when a lithium-ion battery is exposed to water.
This is just a regular Energizer lithium battery, and what's inside of it honestly kind of scares me. Just for fun, though, I'm going to open it up, and I've already made a little cut in the outer shell. Opening batteries like this is dangerous, and it's almost always a huge pain, but I was eventually able to pop off its shell. Now I can unroll its insides and reveal the thing that scares me. It honestly doesn't look like much, but it's a bunch of lithium metal, and it's extremely reactive. The metal itself technically isn't what scares me, though, and it's what can happen if it's added to water. Normally, it just fizzles a bunch and maybe lights on fire. In this foil form from the battery, though, it can sometimes be a bit more reactive. I personally had to discover this the hard way, and I'm very lucky it all turned out okay. This is just a regular
So as you can see, as I said, they're incendiary in nature. So the problem is that more and more products are containing these batteries. They're everywhere. So on the slide here, I have not an exhaustive list, but just some of the most common items that these are found in. They're found commonly in rechargeable batteries, which can be in everything from a power tool to an electric toothbrush. They're in those little greeting cards that you open up and they sing to you, medical equipment, fire and smoke detectors, the list goes on. So the industry response so far, basically we know that this is a huge problem. It has increasing visibility and concern. So SWANA, our professional association for the solid waste industry, the Solid Waste Association of North America, is supporting a bill coming out of California that would hold manufacturers accountable. Also, CalRecycle, which is a California government agency, recently held a hearing to consider some new labeling requirements so that people are aware of the dangers of these batteries. We don't currently have any legislation or anything in Florida, but hopefully we'll see that at some point. And there is new alternative battery technology that's being explored. However, it's many years off. So in the meantime, we have to deal with the problem. And so coming out of an EPA case study and focus group that they had, one of the primary ways to do this is to move forward with public education. So that's what we've decided to do. And I've written a comprehensive marketing and communications plan, which you have a copy of. And I also presented our plan to Palm Beach County Fire Rescue because we felt that with their support, we would have a much broader platform to get the message out, and that it would carry a lot more weight also coming from them. So I'm pleased to say that the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue has agreed to partner with us on this campaign moving forward. And we have Jeff Hines here from Palm Beach County Fire Rescue today just to show support. And what we'll be asking from the municipalities is for their support with us getting garbage stickers onto the bins. So the plan is to get, and you each have a copy of this in front of you to show you exactly what it would look like. The plan is to get these stickers on every single bin in Palm Beach County, but as you know, we have the responsibility for unincorporated, so we'll need to ask the municipalities to help us to get these on the bins in the cities. So the campaign itself, what we've launched so far, this is the look and feel of it. There are a couple of posters here in the room too that you can refer to. So when you go to our homepage, swa.org, this is one of the banners you see. You click and it brings you to a dedicated web page for lithium-ion batteries where we have all of the information about what the problem is and how you can dispose of these batteries. So speaking of disposal, we have our 7 Solid Waste Authority home chemical and recycling centers. Those would be a place that these batteries could be taken or the products containing them. Also, they can be taken back to many local big box stores like Home Depot, Lowe's, Best Buy, Staples, et cetera. And so we have a tool that's embedded on this website where people can go and they can just put in their zip code and it'll show them all of the locations, including our HCRCs and those big box stores, so they can find the closest location to bring them to. And it is important to note that the regular alkaline batteries, like the AA, AAA, C, D, those can just be thrown into the garbage. So we've posted some on social media. And you can see, based on the imagery here, we've decided to take a product-based approach because we realize that it's not really realistic to ask everyone to open up every single product and inspect every battery. So we want to make this as easy as possible for people. And we felt that by teaching them the types of products to look out for, that would be more effective. We have another video here. This is a 30-second commercial that we put out on all the local TV stations. So I'll play this for you quickly.
Lithium-ion batteries and products containing them need to be disposed of properly. When a battery enters the waste stream, it can become damaged and the lithium inside can be exposed to liquids and high temperatures, causing it to become highly flammable. We've even seen these fires in recycling and garbage facilities here in Palm Beach County. Please don't throw your lithium-ion batteries into the garbage and definitely don't put them in your recycle bins. Do your part and a fire won't start. For proper disposal locations, visit us at swa.org/LIB. Lithium.
And then we've also produced some flyers and posters, and we recognize that when we have the multifamily complexes, we're not necessarily going to be able to put these stickers on those larger containers, so we'll have posters in those areas so that people are still seeing the message. Bin stickers, we've gone over that. And our reusable bags, we recently redesigned those. They're in process, but we made sure that we dedicated one whole panel of our bag that we give out all the time at our events to the lithium-ion battery messaging. We also have, in my department, a box truck that we use. So one side of that will have our recycling message, and then the other side will have the lithium-ion battery messaging. And that concludes my presentation. Do you have any questions?
Any questions at all? I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Has anybody ever thought to charge an additional fee for some of these large batteries so that when they return them, people can get the money back? A small fee. We used to do that with cans and things like that. Cans when we were kids. You turn the bottle, you get 5 cents. Today,
Well,
that'd
I mean,
be
that's one
a little
element
more
of-
than a nickel.
That's one element of producer responsibility, I guess, that people are talking about now about these batteries. There isn't really a strong history of that actually happening, but that is certainly something that could be done. It should be noted that when a resident brings these batteries to us, there's no charge.
That's good. Well, that's important. I appreciate having EMS firefighters with you as well to partner to educate everybody on this. Because I was completely surprised that those little Hallmark cards had, of course, many times we don't throw them away anyways, they're memories, but I had no idea that that had a little battery inside that could be potentially dangerous. Thank you for everything you do.
You're welcome, Madam Chair. And we are planning on having some collection events to really get
Good
the
idea.
message out there for people to come and bring these batteries on particular designated days, but of course, they can bring them any day.
Very good. If there's no other questions or comments, we have Commissioner Woodward.
Yes, thank you for this presentation. When did we actually start pushing this? Is it happening now in the past month or so?
It is. We launched the campaign in April, and it's ongoing. So this is very important messaging, and I'd like to note that we have given it the same weight as our recycling messaging. So ongoing, it will be out there just as equally as our recycling messaging.
Are we already seeing an uptick in people bringing batteries to the 7 locations?
Not yet, but we're hoping, again, with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue support and the larger platform, that we'll be able to do better. I will note, too, I kind of held back a little bit on some of the campaign pieces and launching them because I wanted to get their input first before we continued on with it to see if they wanted to redesign anything or say anything different.
So we do have a pretty good baseline as far as where the recycling has been and what this can do in the future, as far as how much success we have with the campaign?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, we're looking at all of that. Statistics are very important for us to track, so.
Just one final question.
Sure,
I know
of course.
we have Mr. Radcliffe here from League of Cities. I wonder, have you been able to meet with them as far as to get the municipalities' support?
Not yet. All of that work is going to take place after this meeting. We were waiting also to make sure that you didn't have any particular direction for this.
Good. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Vice Chair Marino.
Thank you. If someone were to collect these at home and put them in a bag, and when recycling gave them their bag, is that still separated? Is there a way for them to collect that?
At the curb, no. But the direction is to take them to the HCRCs.
I realize
Or
that,
the-
but you know, some people might not live anywhere near one, and I just didn't know if this was I know it's an added step for collections, I just didn't know if someone separated them on their own and the hauler collected it, was there a way they could keep it separate?
There isn't right now. That would have to be something we would have to negotiate with the waste haulers to even see if it's feasible. But it's
Cost-effective.
also something to look at in terms of, obviously, it's a question to ask in terms of the next collection contract, as well as whether that's something we're going to do. Hopefully, this problem goes away, and a new technology comes out. This reminds me of the compact fluorescent debacle, where they wanted to replace the incandescents, and
Right.
they brought out the compact fluorescents, which contain mercury, and that became a problem, and then those were quickly phased out. The recommendation when those came out, if you remember, was if you break one in the house, open all the windows and air out the house for 2 hours. And so that was it's a technology, I guess, that got ahead of itself, and I think with the lithium-ion batteries, we have a technology that's kind of gotten ahead of itself. So that's my 2 cents. But
Thank you, Mr. Pelowitz. Mayor Weiss.
Thank you very much. A couple questions. If a consumer was to mix lithium-ion batteries and the alkaline batteries together, does that create any additional hazard?
It doesn't create an additional hazard. The problem with alkaline batteries used to be that they contain mercury, so they were considered a problem for the environment, but that's no longer the case. So they're pretty benign. And then if they were mixed with the lithium-ion batteries, it would be the lithium-ion battery that would be the problem.
I can imagine that people may not be 100% clear, on what type of batteries and devices they have, and if they were to mix them. I just want to make sure that it didn't create another hazard by putting them together. And then I guess the other thing is, as we, League of Cities is here, and I certainly plan on talking to our Florida Association of Counties about this in terms of a labeling. I think the labeling idea is what's going to really help people understand what's in a device, so that they can make the right decision. Right now, it's, you know, some people think, I mean, if you have a smoke detector, I mean, I have smoke detectors, we put batteries in, right? They're regular alkaline batteries. So I wouldn't know whether I have a lithium-ion battery in mine or not, so.
And these are questions that we are discussing with Palm Beach County Fire Rescue. We've had one brainstorming session so far, so we are still working through really the best way to move forward with the public education campaign, because it can be a little complicated, as you're recognizing. So we want to make sure that we're being effective with our messaging.
And then also just following up on what Commissioner Woodward brought forth. I mean, most of the population in Palm Beach County lives in a municipality, so it's going to be probably even more important to get the cities involved in this, because that's where most of these devices are going to be coming from.
Yes, Mayor Rice, we're definitely going to be reaching out to them as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, if there are no other questions, thank you, Ms. Winter, for that.
Thank you.
Do we at this time do a receive and file on the recommendation that you have presented to the board?
Yes,
Yes.
a motion is second, and adoption
good.
to receive and file.
I'm sure I have a motion to receive and file and a second. Right? Anybody in opposition? Everybody approves. Passes 7-0. I would request at this point that we could hear back from you in August how the program is doing, and if there's anything else we can do, like Mayor Weiss suggested, to reach out to the FAC, and also Vice Chair Marino talked about getting it out to the cities. So if we could have sort of a report at your earliest convenience, we know how it's going.
Absolutely, Madam Chair. And of course, we ask that anybody help us spread the word. So I've already been invited to present at multiple forums. So if you have anything in mind, let me know, and I'd be happy to go.
Very good. I'm going to put it in my newsletter, by the way.
Thank you.
So we'll get it out. Thank you so much for
Thank
that presentation. Moving on to 9E, Engineering and Construction Services. Mr. Pelowitz, are we going to have a recommendation with regard to High Point?
Yes, Ramana, are you going to?
Yes, I'm going to do a
do a
presentation, and then it'll be up for board discussion.
Very good.
So this is about the 5.3 acre parcel lease to High Point. Just a little bit of background on this. Back in 2018, the authority issued an RFP for leasing this site, and Horizon responded to that RFP and in December 2018, and the board approved the lease in June 2019, and we signed the lease in June 2019. And the board gave them 18 months rent-free to get all their permits, or until 18th of December 2020, so 18-month period. So in December 2020, Horizon came back and paid the lease of $74,600 for the first year, but they failed to get any permits. And in February of 2021, they requested a lease assignment from Horizon 880 to High Point, which is the new entity now. And in December 2021, again, they failed to pay the lease payment. They asked for a deferral, and they had all kinds of financial issues, and they wanted to extend the deadline for the permits until March 31st of 2022. So that was Amendment 1. And the key here is to obtain all permits. Then along the way, the board recognized that there could be delays in the permitting process. So in May 2022, we approved Amendment number 2 with lease payment deferral. And instead of obtain all permits, the board asked them to apply for all permits and extended the deadline until October 2022. And they failed to get permits by October 2022. In January of 2023, this year, they didn't pay the rent, and they were in default, and we had to send a notice of default. And then they paid the fee after the February board meeting. So we had Amendment 3 approved in February, and new deadline for applying for all permits was 9th of May, which was last month. And so the conditions that the board approved, Amendment 3, are here. Pay the lease fee by 9th of February 2023, which they satisfied, and pay all taxes by 10th of March, and they did that, and submit a detailed cost estimate for construction by 9th of May. They provided that, and they also provided a letter from the investor regarding the commitment by 9th of May. But the availability of funds, there was a little discrepancy. The cost estimate showed 15 million required, but their accountant said, the proof of funds was only 3 million, so they're 12 million short on that one. And obviously they missed the deadline for permit applications. And this is the permitting status, so basically nothing has changed since last October. So 8 months has passed by, and it's pretty much the same status. So the only approvals they got were Palm Beach County Fire Marshal approval back in October last year, and the exemption, which is basically a letter exemption because their site is less than 5 acres in usable space. So it's basically no design required. It's just a request, and the district would approve that. But other than that, the last 4 items that you see on screen there, Palm Beach County Water Utilities, it's a 3 to 6 month process for review and approval, but they have to submit it. And same with Lake Worth Drainage District drainage permit application, Palm Beach County Health, and the last one basically would require all other permits being approved before they can even submit that one, and that's the Palm Beach County Building Department application. And so, that's all I have. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions by members of the board? Go right ahead. Mr.
Yes, thank you.
Pelowitz.
So just to summarize, at this point, and I think legal counsel would agree as we've discussed this, is that High Point is in technical default of the lease amendment and not having achieved their permits or not having applied for their permits. Under the lease agreement, that if you wish to hold them to that would trigger a 60-day cure period, upon which the inability to cure, and that is to apply for the permits, could result at the board's discretion in termination of the lease. I'll note that the CAC, Citizens Advisory Committee, did hear this same presentation, and the Citizens Advisory Committee's position was to grant the company until December 18th, 2023, which was the leases paid through, to have submitted all permit applications, and failing to do that would result in termination. It's really up to the board as to which direction we go on this. We are prepared, along with legal counsel, to assist you with putting together a motion to effect whatever it is you desire to do. It's my understanding that Mr. Paul Cross is on the phone. Is he on the phone? So Mr. Cross is a representative of High Point. If the board wishes to hear from Mr. Cross, we can make that happen.
I think we're going to, is he on the phone now, Mr. Cross? He is.
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. Have you heard the comments and the staff presentation up to now, Mr. Cross?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Would you like to give a statement now, or would you like to wait until some of the commissioners have a statement to say?
I'm happy to, sorry, Madam Chair, I'm happy to listen to comments, and we can certainly have everything ready by December 18th as per the recommendation.
Okay, very good. Let me ask. We have I have a couple of questions and statements, and you're open for questions as well, Mr. Cross, by members of the board. I'm going to now turn to Vice Chair Marino.
Actually, I think, oh, it's me? Okay, I'll go. Mr. Cross, I know you want to hear what we have to say, but quite frankly, and I think I'll speak for the rest of the board when I say this, this is a huge disappointment for all of us. This has been a 4-year process. I don't see where extending your time to December makes any difference. So I'll go with what the rest of the board says, but since there has been plenty of time and plenty of extensions and plenty of excuses, I don't see why we should hold up the process from actually giving us the opportunity to repurpose this land with another agency. But those are my opinions.
Very good. Thank you.
Do you like my comment, or do I just listen?
Well, you're more than welcome to comment, Mr. Cross. Go right ahead.
It was. I absolutely agree with the frustration from everyone's end, and from ours as well. But our May 9th was the approval was to get the lease paid and the permits paid, and we have done that. We are just finalizing all of our details here. We have the funding groups, and obviously that has been our concern. That has been resolved, and so we are ready to push forward, and we apologize to the board and to SWA that it has taken us longer than we had ever expected. Yes, you've got COVID, you've got everything else, but we are ready to move forward, which is why I'm on the line to give you that confirmation.
Very good, thank you. Secretary Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. A few questions. It said on the presentation that some of the permits were pending.
No.
So what, have they been applied for?
No, it's pending submittal, so I mean,
Pending
like I
submittal.
said, the board changed from obtain to apply, in mid-2022, recognizing, there could be delays. So the goal was to have, everything that's in High Point's control done, so I mean, there's no external influence on delays and everything impacting them. So they do their part, all they had to do was to apply. And
So
let the process run out. So.
my question would be for the gentleman, how come you still haven't applied for the permits?
There's no design.
That's a great question, and thank you for that. Addendum 3 added the part of the of the new permits, which wasn't by board at the meeting. But however, to get the permits, I'm not the permit gentleman, so we have Glenn Blount and Greg Fagan, who are from West Palm Beach, and they are the approval signed documents to get the permits approved. But they needed another $400,000 to make sure that we had the building envelope paid for, and therefore we needed to have our funding in place. That was completed for the May 9th deadline, and we are now just finalizing everything so that they can move forward.
Mr. Pelowitz, if you would please.
Yes, I would just like to point out that the board met in February and authorized the execution of Amendment 3. In February, it was represented to us that the permit applications could be submitted by May. There has been no meaningful progress in obtaining permits, and in fact, Mr. Cross references that they're ready to go, but they've included in your packet is executed agreements with a contractor, an engineer, and an architect, all of which were executed by Mr. Cross on May 8th, the day before the deadline that was established. So, our concern is and has been the lack of meaningful progress, and the demonstration, or at least the demonstration or the questions that raises as to their ability to actually build and operate this facility. Our bigger concern really is it's not now, because we're out time right now. They're paying the lease, which is a nominal amount. We're not in the business of leasing property. That's not what we do. We lease this property to them to solve a countywide problem. And it's 4 years in, and the problem isn't any closer to being solved by them. And so the question for us is, what is the risk to the authority in terms of the impairment of the property? Should they start construction and not complete, or should they construct the building, and then it not be viable at that point in time? And then, obviously, there's going to be a construction bond for the project, so that should help in terms of if they get started, potentially, if you can call that bond. But once it's built, we could be stuck with a significant improvement on our property that we then have to deal with. And under the lease, we have the option of negotiating a purchase price for that, but I don't know that we really want it. And that leaves us in a position of probably having to demolish it. And the other side of that is that the market has changed in 4 years. 4 years ago, they came in with a proposal, and in their proposal, the construction cost was at $5.5 million. It's now over 15. They estimated a payback period of 4 to 5 years. Well, what's the payback period at 15? And the market has changed. There is a significant amount of this material that is now flowing north up to Central Florida, up to Compost USA, from out of Wellington in particular.
No.
And so that can potentially change the amount of feedstock that's available. So these are the concerns, and just the inability to move the permit process forward, to me, is a red flag. And so I have nothing against High Point. I wish them the best success. But like I said, we're willing to work with them longer if that's the board's desire, or as you say, follow board direction as it relates to this lease agreement.
Very good.
Chair,
Thank you.
if I may continue, I just wanted
Sure,
to.
go right ahead, Commissioner.
So just to clarify, earlier you said, so if we decide to terminate this today, it's 60 days?
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Howard Falcon, our legal counsel, and he can address legal questions.
So the default provision of the lease says that we have to give them notice of default, and then they have 60 days within which to cure. In the event they don't cure within that 60 days, we have the right to terminate at a date 15 days or greater after that. So essentially, they have 75 days within which to cure. Mr. Kari has said he sees there's no chance of them doing that within the 75 days. So if they didn't, we would then we'd go into court and we'd be pursuing eviction.
So to cure being them applying for the permits?
Yes, that would be
So-
the cure.
I would be in favor of, I guess, terminating today and that gives them their 75 days.
Well, then,
Am I to make comments again, or am I waiting for the rest?
you can, Secretary Baxter, would you like to hear a comment on your motion?
Sure.
Or Mr. Cross? Go right ahead, Mr. Cross.
And I understand everything that's being said. There is 200,000 tons of horse waste that is now being driven up so far 2 hours away, that is affecting the cost and livelihood of the haulers. It's costing the farms much more money. We know that this is a massive environmental crisis that we're in, and we have the ability to resolve it. We paid our lease. We paid the property tax. We would request that we have to the December 18th because that's our lease period, and that will give us the time to put the permits in. From my understanding from Glenn Blount, that we can't do that in 3 months or 75 days. We can do that in 6 months. That's their timeline, and we would ask at Five Point that you would honor the lease to the end of the year.
Chair, if I may.
Thank you. Mr. Cross, Secretary Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. I hear what you're saying, but I have to say, we have to take into account all the information we have. And to this date, this has been a very strung out process. And I don't have confidence that even if you get through the permitting process, that it'll be a smooth transaction from there with how difficult this seems to be in just a short period of time since we've been here, or us new commissioners have been here. So I would like to move to terminate.
This time we have a second by Mayor Weiss. We still have some comments. Mayor Weiss, your light is on. Would you like to comment after your second?
I second that. Question for staff. I know we had to make some improvements on that property. What was our investment so far that we had to make on that? And I know it's not going away. But
Yeah, it's approximately $500,000, and that's not including the $60,000 that Palm Beach County Road and Bridge invested in this to make the intersection improvements at Pike and 7th Place.
So between the Palm Beach County and the Solid Waste Authority, we're into this almost $600,000 in actual costs.
Correct.
Plus all the staff time and everything else. I don't see this being able to move forward. I don't see any reason why we should take additional time on this. I'd like to just see that we execute as the lease allows, or the contract allows for us to do, and to terminate this lease.
Very good. Commissioner Barnett, did you want to say anything?
I think my question was answered, but Mr. Pelowitz, if you would mind elaborating on what risk the Solid Waste Authority will incur if we cancel this contract, or at least allow them to continue until December 18th, what the financial impact to the Solid Waste Authority would be?
There is no financial impact to the Solid Waste Authority. Obviously, the risk would be limited to potential litigation, and the outcome of that, obviously, as you know, is uncertain in any case. But we believe we're on strong legal footing, and if you wish to proceed, we've just, I think, Mr. Falcon and I would like to at least address the phrasing of the motion so that we have clear direction.
Hi, Mr. Jones.
Mr. Falcon.
Mr. Falcone.
Yes, thank you. And that's exactly why I pressed the button to speak. I would like to address that. I would suggest that the motion be that you authorize the executive director to default the tenant and to pursue all remedies under the lease, including eviction.
So amended.
And so amended on the second by Mayor Weiss. Okay. If there's no other comments or questions by the board, we're going to proceed to a vote. Is there anyone in opposition to the motion as framed by Mr. Falcone? All right. Is everybody for it? Excellent. Then find that, for the clerk, it passes 7-0 unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, staff, for the work. Mr. Pelowitz, thank you. And Mr. Cross, good luck. Thank you. All right, moving on. Planning and environmental programs, that would be you. The director, Ms. Morrison.
Good morning. I don't have any items today. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. And the financial management has been reordered, so we're going to go and move on to number 10. Are there any other scheduled matters at this time? Mr.
There are not.
Very good. And is there any comments by Mr. Falcone?
No, ma'am. No further comments. Thank you.
Very good. Any comments by the staff? Any others?
No, I just want to thank you all for your time and for taking the time to be with us here today. I'd like to thank staff, finance staff, for helping to put together what I believe is a really good budget, and everyone else as well for the job they do. And obviously, Christina Richards for a nice presentation. Thank you, Christina.
Very nice. Thank you, Ms.
Other than that,
Richards.
thank you all.
Any other comments by the board before we adjourn? And note that the next meeting is going to be on August 23rd, 2023 at 9:30 a.m. here in the same place. Thank you all. Everybody stay safe. Thank you.